Today's lesson is fighting the fever, keeping deadly dengue at bay. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to continue talking about dengue fever. It does happen in Taiwan from time to time. It never becomes a real epidemic or anything like that, but it's still something to be concerned about, and even more something to be concerned about if you're traveling to parts of the world where it is more common, like in Africa, Asia, and parts of South America. Now, last time we talked about some of the symptoms of dengue fever. What were they exactly?
Some of the symptoms, well, if it's a mild thing, it might feel like a flu. You might have a pounding headache. You might feel hot. You might feel achy all over. In other words, you might have a fever. And yeah, in a mild case, you'll feel like you have the flu. It might last a bit longer, up to 10 days possibly, but certainly nothing too weird, nothing to worry you too much, and certainly nothing that might make you think, I gotta get to a hospital. That's a mild case, though. With a serious case, it gets much worse. Bleeding from the nose and gums, low blood pressure, and all of this can be fatal if left untreated. So a severe case of dengue fever would make you severely ill, and you would definitely be wanting to be in a hospital under the care of a doctor and other health professionals. So basically, avoid dengue fever.
Indeed, and of course we did talk about the fact that even if you've had dengue fever before, you're not completely safe because there are a total of 4 kinds of the dengue virus. If you've had one, you could still catch one of the other 3. You do not have an immunity from those other 3, so you might be in big trouble then. So again, please be careful. We'll talk some more about dengue fever in today's lesson, and of course we want to talk about how not to fall victim to this terrible disease. We certainly don't want our dear students to be getting sick from this or any other disease. Let's find out more about this by listening to the first paragraph right now.
So how can you avoid falling victim to this horrible disease? The main thing you should try to do is simply avoid being bitten by the bugs that carry it, namely mosquitoes. This can be done by taking measures to keep mosquitoes away. For example, by applying mosquito repellent when going outside or by sleeping under a mosquito net.
大家好，我们来看第一部分中的片语 fall victim to something， 意思是成为点点点的受害者，或是被点点点所伤。例如 The local economy fell victim to globalization and outsourcing of jobs. 当地的经济成为全球化与工作外包的受害者。或者 Lucas doesn't use social media applications anymore after he fell victim to cyberbullying. Lucas 在成为网络霸凌的受害者后，就不再使用任何社群媒体。接着介绍 namely， 它是副词，指的是也就是说或是一级。例如 The policy will improve benefits for students, namely by providing more scholarship funding. 该政策将改善学生的福利，及提供更多的奖学金资金。也可以说 Good lifestyles can prevent diseases, namely regular exercising, getting enough sleep, and having a healthy diet. 良好的生活方式可以预防疾病，以及规律运动、充足的睡眠和健康的饮食。
Okay, so we begin the first part of our lesson for today with a question. So, how can you avoid falling victim to this horrible disease? If you fall victim to something, that means you become the victim of something, you suffer from something. So, yeah, how can you avoid getting this disease? How can you prevent this disease from getting to you?
That's right. You don't want to fall victim to a disease or fall victim to crime. That might be another thing that might happen to you. If you're unlucky, basically a bad thing happens to you, you become a victim of something bad, like disease or crime. Well, it says, how to avoid getting dengue fever. The main thing you should try to do is simply avoid being bitten by the bugs that carry it, namely mosquitoes. I don't like advice like that. It's impossible impossible to avoid being bitten by mosquitoes, but I guess there are things we can do to make us less likely to be bitten by mosquitoes. So yes, basically, if mosquitoes carry dengue fever, don't let a mosquito bite you, and then you'll never get dengue fever. Or as it says, the main thing is to simply avoid being bitten by the bugs that carry it, namely mosquitoes. When we say namely there, we're giving a precise name to a general category. I don't really like a lot of Hollywood actors, namely Leonardo DiCaprio. I think they can't act, they're overactors, blah, 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 something like that. So I'm kind of putting one specific example to a general thing that I don't like. I don't like a lot of desserts in Taiwan, namely chocolate cake, because I don't think it has enough sugar in it or something like that, right? So I'm kind of naming one thing as a precise example of something that I'm talking about earlier in a more general way. So, yeah, avoid being bitten by the animals that carry dengue fever. To be precise, mosquitoes. This can be done by taking measures to keep mosquitoes away. For example, by applying mosquito repellent when going outside or by sleeping under a mosquito net. All right, those don't sound too extreme, especially if you live in an area where you know that there are a lot of mosquitoes. There are certain measures that you can take to keep mosquitoes away. A measure in this case is kind of an act, a step, something that you can do. Certain measures that will help you live a healthier life, sleep well, eat well, exercise. These are actions, these are behaviors, these are things that you can do. In this case, things that you can do to keep the mosquitoes away. And we give a couple of very logical, sensible examples here, don't we, Roger?
Indeed. For example, by applying mosquito repellent when you go outside. That would be a special chemical that you put on your skin. You can spray it on your skin or you can rub it on your skin. That is a repellent. That comes from the verb to repel, which means to keep something away, like two poles of a magnet will repel each other if they're the same polarity, like the positive pole of a magnet will repel the other positive pole of another magnet because they come close together, so they will repel each other. And so this is a repellent, which you put on your skin when you go outside, when you go hiking, when you go to the beach or whatever. That's one measure you can take. And another measure you can take would be to sleep under a mosquito net, which I've tried before. I bought a mosquito net from a famous furniture company. I'm not going to name names there, but the little devils still figured out how to get inside that net. I couldn't figure that out. I had it completely closed. It was a fine quality net, but they still got in. I can't figure that out.
Really? Well, get a good quality net and make sure it works. That is absolutely good advice. And yes, there are other things that we can do to prevent mosquitoes and dengue fever, and we'll be finding out all about those in the next part of our article. So let's check it out.
But another important preventive measure consists of removing the conditions that enable mosquitoes to breed in and around one's home and community. Since mosquitoes lay their eggs in still water and only require a very small amount of water to do so, getting rid of any water that may have gathered, say in empty plant pots, buckets, or other containers, can greatly reduce the number of mosquitoes in your area. This, in turn, will reduce the spread of dengue fever, too.
第二部分来看到 breed 这个动词，它的意思是繁殖、育种，也可以是饲养或是培育。例如 If you don't keep the fish tank clean, bacteria will be able to breed there. 如果不保持鱼缸干净，细菌就会在那里繁殖。或是 The farmer was eager to breed pumpkin plants that produced larger fruits. 那位农夫渴望培育出能结出更大果实的南瓜植株。接下来介绍名词 container， 表示容器，也可以是货柜的意思。举例来说 To keep the cookies fresh, store them in a sealed container. 为了保持饼干新鲜，请将它们放在密封容器中。又或者说 Trudy keeps her jewelry in a small metal container in her dresser. Trudy 将她的珠宝存放在梳妆台的一个小金属容器中。
Okay, so in the second part, we're still trying to keep dengue fever at bay. We want to keep it away from us. Another important preventive measure consists of removing the conditions that enable mosquitoes to breed in and around one's home and community. So that's a preventive measure. If something's preventive, it's done to prevent something, to stop it from happening. And this is a measure that you can take. It consists or includes removing the conditions that bring the mosquitoes out in the first place. And of course, mosquitoes will breed, which means the boys and the girls will get together and they'll produce baby mosquitoes. So you want to stop that from happening. You want to prevent them from being able to get together and do that. And of course, you need to do that around your home and around your community, and there are different ways to do that.
And let's learn about that. It says, since mosquitoes lay their eggs in still water and only require a very small amount of water to do so, getting rid of any water that may have gathered, say, in empty plant pots, buckets, or other containers, can greatly reduce the number of mosquitoes in your area. Very good, very sensible, and proactive. This is something you can do before the mosquitoes come out. Not just, of course, mosquitoes that might give you dengue fever, but the same mosquitoes that bite you, give you those itchy bumps, fly around in your ears at night when you're trying to sleep. Just get rid of the mosquitoes. Don't give them that nice place to breed. And especially they like to breed in still water. We talked about stagnant water in the first day of our article. Standing water, not moving water, so not river water or ocean water, but puddles of water, buckets of water, old tires that collect rainwater, and it sits there for a few days before it dries up. That is the perfect breeding ground, the perfect nursery for mosquitoes and their eggs. So get rid of that still water. Those buckets that might collect it, flip them over so they can't get it. Go around and shake the water out of things where it might have gathered after a rainstorm or something like that, because they only require a very small amount of water to do so. So even like the water at the bottom of a little cup, if you leave a cup for some reason outside, that might be enough. So they don't need huge amounts, liters and liters of water, or a giant pond. They will happily breed in a giant stagnant pond, but they'll also happily breed in a small amount of water, like, for example, at the bottom of an empty tire sitting behind your house or behind your garage or something like that. Getting rid of any water that may have gathered, say, for example, in empty plant pots, buckets, or other containers. These are the common places you might find it. And as we said, it doesn't have to be a lot of water. So containers is anything that holds other things. A jar, a can, a bucket, a bowl. These are all different types of containers. And of course, they can hold and carry and contain a lot of different things that are useful to us, but they can also contain things that aren't useful, like still water that mosquitoes can breed in. And if you do this, if you kind of police the area, manage the area, keep it safe and secure, and look out for places where this water can gather, this water can collect, you can greatly reduce the number of mosquitoes in your area. And as I said, this is good for you not just to avoid disease, but also to avoid that annoying mosquito waking you up at 2 a.m. by buzzing around in your ear.
Yeah, more worried about those kinds of mosquitoes, although you should be concerned about the ones that carry dengue fever around. Yeah, after it rains, walk around your house and make sure there isn't any still water or stagnant water. This happens at my house quite frequently. We have a small garden behind our house, and sometimes it rains quite heavily, and then the water just kind of sits there for a while before it gets sucked into the ground. So yeah, you need to watch out for things like that. And if you do that, this in turn will reduce the spread of dengue fever too. So yes, in turn or as a result, that just means if you do those things, if you reduce the amount of stagnant water, then it will also reduce the amount of mosquitoes and it will reduce the spread of dengue fever too. So you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. You can get rid of those pesky mosquitoes that buzz around your ears at night, and you can keep dengue fever at bay. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's listen now to the third part.
Meanwhile, it should be noted that people who have been infected with dengue before face a greater risk of severe disease upon reinfection. Therefore, individuals with a prior infection should take particular care to avoid a second case. Fortunately, by taking some simple steps like the ones detailed above, most people in at-risk areas can turn the odds of staying dengue-free greatly in their favor.
第3部分来介绍 prior 这个形容词，意思是先前的、在前的或是优先的。 例如 Jessie couldn't go to the concert with her friends because she didn't get prior approval from her parents. Jessie 不能和她的朋友一起去听演唱会，因为她没有事先得到父母的同意。或是 Diana and Gloria decided to do some shopping prior to having dinner. Diana 和 Gloria 决定在晚餐前去购物。再来是名词 odds， 指的是可能性或是机会。例如 Since the singer is already popular, the odds are that her new album will sell well. 由于该歌手已经很受欢迎，她的新专辑很可能会畅销。再看一个例子 The odds of winning the lottery are very low, but that doesn't stop people from playing. 虽然中乐透的几率非常低，但这并不能阻止人们玩。最后是 in somebody's favor 这个片语，它的意思是对点点点有利，或是使点点点处于有利的位置。可以说 With the sun out and the skies clear, everything looks to be in our favor for our hike. 晴空万里的景象对我们的健行很有利。下一个例子 John's beefy shape is in his favor during the football game. John 壮硕的身材在橄榄球比赛中对他有利。
Okay, the third part here begins by saying, meanwhile, it should be noted that people who have been infected with dengue before face a greater risk of severe disease upon reinfection. So we should note this. We should let you know this. If you have been infected before, well, you might have some more problems in the future. Now, to be infected with something or to be infected by something means that something dangerous gets into your body, like bacteria or a virus. So, of course, if during the COVID pandemic you got COVID, you were infected by that virus, you probably touched a surface that somebody else touched who had the disease as well. So you became infected, and then you had the symptoms, and you had to be treated, and hopefully you were okay afterwards. So, yes, indeed, if you have been infected with dengue fever before, it's more risky for you because you might be reinfected more easily than other people. To be reinfected just means to be infected again.
Interesting. As we said, with many diseases, you might have immunity. You might not be able to get the disease again. Or if you get it a second time, like with COVID, it's not as bad as the first time. Dengue fever kind of works in the opposite way. So you might get that mild case the first time with just sort of flu-like symptoms. The second time, that's when you get the bleeding from the nose and the low blood pressure. That's when you might have to go to a hospital. So, as it says, therefore, because of that, keeping that fact in mind, because of that, individuals with a prior infection should take particular care to avoid a second case. Right? So if you get it once, getting it twice could be much worse. So if you've had that prior infection, that one that came before is the prior one, not the one we're talking about now, but one that happened in the past before. If you've had a prior marriage, you've been married before. You might be getting remarried to a lovely person you just met, but you did have a prior marriage. You did get married before. It happened in the past, in your history. So if you've been infected before, if you've had a prior infection, you should take particular or extra careful care. Be very, very careful to avoid a second case. Fortunately, we finish on a happy note or a more positive, optimistic note. Fortunately, by taking some simple steps like the ones detailed above, right? Mosquito repellent, mosquito nets, get rid of any still, stagnant water around your house. Steps like that are simple, and we've detailed them, we've explained them above in the article. Fortunately, by taking some simple steps like the ones detailed above, most people in at-risk areas can turn the odds of staying dengue-free greatly in their favor. So if you live in an at-risk area or an area with the possibility or the danger of dengue fever, it does happen in this part of the world. People do get sick around here. That would be an at-risk area. You can turn the odds. You can improve the chances of staying dengue-free greatly in your favor or in the person's favor, in their favor. The odds are basically this sort of what the statistics say the chances are. If you go and bet on a horse race, if the horse is at 3-to-1 odds, if you bet $1, you might get $3 if they win. That's a pretty good horse. If it's a 10-to-1 horse, you bet $1. And if the horse wins, you'll get $10 because the horse is not expected to win. So lower those odds because you don't want to get it again and you want to improve things and have them go in your favor or positively for you in a way that is helpful, good, and beneficial to you. You don't want to get this disease once or twice especially.
Yep, and hopefully we can prevent the spread of this disease to other people as well, and we can all be healthy and continue to study with us here at All+ Interactive English. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher, Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分是关于如何避免被带病的蚊子叮咬。那他提到可以借由采取措施远离蚊子来做到。举例来说，在外出时使用驱蚊液或是睡在蚊帐底下。好，那文中他用到 take measures 来表达采取措施。measure 当名词可以表达措施方法。那在这个片语里面 measures 固定要用复数形，它的前面呢可以加形容词来修饰。例如The country took strong measures to contain the virus. 那个国家采取强硬措施来遏制这个病毒。我们顺便补充2个相关的用法。第一个要补充的是 take steps. Step 当名词有一步、脚步、步伐的意思，引申表达做事过程中的步骤阶段。那 take steps 就可以用来表达采取步骤、采取行动、采取措施。后面可以接 to 加原形动词，或者是你也可以接 toward 再加名词或动名词。当我们说 take steps to reduce plastic waste 就可以表达采取行动来减少塑胶废弃物。好，那第二个补充的用法是 take action。Action 它表示行动、行为 ，take action 就表示采取行动。那 action 的前面可以加形容词，像 take effective action 采取有效行动 ，take immediate action 采取立即行动等等。那我们也可以在 take action 的后面接 to 加原形动词去表达采取行动做某事。好，那另外课文它有用到 repellent 这个单字是指驱虫剂，那它是来自动词 repel 有驱逐或者是击退的意思。那我们来学习它的字首字根。看到这个字根 pel 它有 push 或是 drive 等等的意思，表达驱使、驱动、推挤。那么在 repel 这个字当中，字首 re 表示 back返回往回，那么字根 pel 表示 drive 驱使，我们驱使攻击者或是敌人返回，把他们推回去，这样应该可以联想到 repel 它有击退、驱逐的意思。顺便补充几个有相同字根的单字。第一个补充的是 propel， 它的字首 pro 表示 forward 向前，那么 pel 表示驱使，合在一起 propel 它就有推动推进、驱策、驱动的意思。第二个补充的是 expel， 它的字首 ex 表示由内向外， pel 表示推挤。那由内向外推挤应该很容易联想到 expel 它有驱逐、赶走、排出的意思。第三个补充的是 dispel， 它的字首 dis 表示分离，那么 pel 表示驱使，合在一起 dispel 就有驱散或消除的意思了。好，那以上今天重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Namely, Diana has several hobbies, namely painting, hiking, and playing the piano. Measure. Runners should take certain preventive measures to guard against injury. Breed. The farms in this area are primarily focused on breeding chickens for egg production. Container. Feeling full, Alvin put some of his lunch in a container to save it for later. Infect. After bacteria infected the woman's wound, the doctor said she needed surgery right away. Prior. We were given no prior notice that the meeting time would be changed. Odds. Although the odds were against him, Raymond hoped he would succeed in becoming a professional athlete.
Discussion Starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today. The question is, what are some steps you've previously taken to reduce your risk of being infected with dengue?
To lessen my chances of getting dengue fever, I've sometimes gotten out of bed in the middle of the night, turned on all the lights, and waited to go back to sleep until I killed that mosquito. And in my old apartment, which had an outdoor balcony, after every big rainstorm, I would always go around and make sure there was no still, stagnant water collecting in things.
Okay, well, in the past, I've always listened to my wife when I say that I want to travel down south to Kaohsiung or Tainan or whatever, because she always knows things about the news and about diseases, and every once in a while, there's a case of dengue fever in Tainan, you can't go there. So yes, in order to find out if a place is at risk, then I just simply listen to my wife because she always gives me a proper warning, although I'm sure if I went down to Tainan or Kaohsiung, I'd be perfectly fine.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Mike.
I am Roger. See you next time.